A mid-term review is currently being undertaken to evaluate the technical compliance and effectiveness of Mauritius AML CFT and CPF frameworks. And thirdly, we are in the process of conducting 2 reviews, namely the review of the terrorism financing risk assessment associated with non-profit organizations and the review of the MLTF risk assessment of virtual asset service providers.
Minister of Financial Services and Economic Planning, Her Excellency Charlotte Pierre, British High Commissioner, Mrs. Shakuntala Devi Gajadhar, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Financial Services and Economic Planning, Mrs. Ushalini Sirwaz, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Financial Services and Economic Planning, Mr. Tom Keating, Director of the Center for Finance and Security at the Royal United Services Institute, Mr. Prakash Silsankar, Officer in charge of the Financial Services Commission, distinguished representatives from the Royal United Services Institute, esteemed guests and participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my great honor to welcome you all to the opening ceremony of a workshop on assessing the risk of proliferation financing, which is being organized by the Ministry of Financial Services and Economic Planning in collaboration with the British High Commission and the Financial Services Commission. Through this workshop, which is being facilitated by the experts from the Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, we have embarked on a journey of knowledge sharing, inspiration, networking, and dialogue that will contribute to our understanding in assessing proliferation financing risk. Ladies and gentlemen, proliferation financing, as we know, is a complex and multifaceted threat that extends across borders and sectors. It is a challenge for governments, regulatory bodies, financial institutions, and the international community as a whole. While the FATF calls for countries to implement targeted financial sanctions related to proliferation financing under Recommendation 7, Recommendation 1 further reinforces this obligation by requiring countries and the private sector to identify and assess the risk of potential breaches, non-implementation, or evasion of such targeted financial sanctions. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's workshop, we will gain valuable insights into RUSI's CPF approach and methodology for assessing PF risk, the traditional and new technology-relevant typologies and red flags, the method used by PF actors, the risk assessment process, and best practices for public-private collaboration in combating proliferation financing, amongst others. Before we proceed to the next segment, let me take a moment to thank our distinguished experts from the RUSI for their time and invaluable expertise. We are fortunate to have such a distinguished lineup today, and I trust that their presentations will provide us with not only a deeper understanding of the issue, but also concrete steps that we can take to counter the risks we face. On this note, I encourage all participants to make the most of this workshop. Ladies and gentlemen, we are truly honored to have the RUSI to partner with us for this important workshop. The RUSI expertise in combating proliferation financing is unparalleled and widely recognized, and we are indeed privileged to have experts from such prestigious institutions delivering this training to you. I now have the pleasure to invite Mr. Tom Keating, the founding director of the Center for Finance and Security at the Royal United Services Institute, to deliver his remarks. Mr. Tom Keating, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. You made your expectations of what we are to do very clear, so I hope we don't let you down and disappoint you. So thank you all very much for the invitation to join you today. This is my second visit to Mauritius. My previous visit was in 2005, and I'm afraid the thing I remember most was sitting in my hotel room, nervously watching the TV to hear whether or not London had been awarded the Olympic Games or not. I can't remember the beach, I can't remember the weather, I can just remember being delighted that London had been awarded the Olympic Games. But I'm sure I had a great time, and I'm sure I'll have a great time while I'm here this time as well. So I've met some of you before, but just a brief word as to who I am. As mentioned, I run the Center for Finance and Security at RUSI, and Proliferation Finance has been a central part of our work since we started in 2014. I take no credit for that. The credit should go to a colleague that I had at the time who came to me and said, she was an expert on nuclear topics, and she came to me and she said, have you heard of this thing called the Financial Action Task Force? And I sort of said, yes, of course I have. It persecutes countries around the world. And she said, well, apparently they're very worried about money that might be connected with the work of North Korea and its WMD program. So maybe we should put together a project. So we put together a project, and as they say, the rest is history. It's a topic that we've been working on since 2016. And this is the point where you will immediately expel me from the country, because it was at our suggestion to the FATF that they should introduce the requirement to develop risk assessment on proliferation finance, that the FATF followed through on that. So the reason I tell you all this is that we've spent many years thinking about how to efficiently and effectively address the bold requirements of the FATF to tackle the question of proliferation finance. Now, this visit today, obviously, some of you I have got to know online over the years because we worked with you in 2020 during the pandemic, when you were coming to terms with the possibility and then the reality of being grey-listed. I remember one of the colleagues saying, don't worry, Mr. Tom, we are running flights from Europe back to Mauritius to bring Mauritian nationals home during the pandemic time. You're welcome to join one of those flights. However, we cannot guarantee that you will be able to return to the UK anytime soon. So actually, in hindsight, I should have accepted that offer and spent the pandemic locked down in Mauritius rather than locked down in the UK. But hey, sometimes we make decisions that we regret. But this particular visit has its roots around the breakfast table in Lubango. If you've never been to Lubango, maybe don't make it a top priority on your holiday destination list, but it's in Angola, and it was the venue for the SMLAG plenary back in April last year. And I made it my business to get to breakfast very early every morning during the plenary and sit there and see who I could talk to. And there was a very persistent delegation from Mauritius who came and said, you must come to Mauritius. And I said, well, you must speak to Tom Green at the British High Commission. And they did, and here we are. So Tom, thank you very much to you for all your efforts to facilitate this trip. So obviously, Mauritius, like all countries, has been on the FATF journey. And that journey for all countries has been particularly intense over the last 10 years since the FATF introduced its new standards in 2012, the need to be effective, not just compliant. And of course, many countries, and Mauritius is one of those, has had a particularly intense version of that journey, but I think Mauritius should be congratulated for the speed with which and the efficiency with which you all dealt with the fallout of the 2018 mutual evaluation report, and then the grey listing. I think my colleague Andy is here from Malta. I think Malta got off the grey list in a year, but you guys weren't far behind in terms of speed and efficiency, so you should all be congratulated for that. But of course, the FATF process is not a static process. Unfortunately, people like us are constantly suggesting to the FATF how they can perhaps improve and advance the standards. And so, of course, next time you look at the standards, they've changed. You have to deal with things like cryptocurrency risk. You have to deal with things like proliferation finance risk assessments. And so you can't just say, well, job done. We're off the FATF grey list now. We can go back to the beach or whatever else we were doing. It's always important to keep thinking about self-improvement, because the next battle of evaluation is never far away, and most countries wake up too late and then realise that actually they wish they had been like a sort of sixth form student confronting their exams. They wish that they had been paying attention in class, not just cramming to do the exam at the last minute. And of course, the FATF no longer celebrates box ticking; it celebrates the whole question of effectiveness. So we hope that over the days we're here, we can talk about effectiveness. I've been canvassing people this morning as to what their expectations are out of the workshop that we have today. So far, I think we've brought the right team. I should just mention them. We have Bushra, who is our expert on risk assessment. You can blame her for all the challenges faced by risk assessment. Andy, most interesting about Andy is he's just been on holiday here for the last week, but also used to work for HSBC in Malta. So he combined both a bank that had problems and a jurisdiction that had problems. So he can explain about all of that. And then, Gonzalo, who's also a sanctions research expert from our team. So hopefully you have the right people here. But thank you again very much for welcoming us. Thank you to the British High Commission for facilitating the trip, Minister. Thank you very much. I should say, by the way, I already like the Minister, because the thing that I always say in events like this is, if you are in this community working in government, if you're in Financial Services Commission or in Ministry of Finance, there's one question I always ask, and it makes people very embarrassed. I say, if you are working in this community and you're telling the private sector what to do, when did you last work in the private sector? And I was pleased to hear that the Minister has experience in the private sector. So you're the right person to lead this initiative for Mauritius. So thank you all very much. Thank you again. We look forward to a productive visit, enjoyable workshop today. And with that, I will hand over to Charlotte, the High Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tom Keating, for your insightful remarks. We look forward to the valuable training that lies ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed, it is important to acknowledge the thriving collaboration between Mauritius and the United Kingdom. Over the years, the UK has consistently demonstrated its commitment to supporting Mauritius, particularly in capacity building efforts to enhance the capabilities of our offices and ensuring that they are better equipped to tackle money laundering, terrorism financing, and proliferation financing. We are truly grateful for continued cooperation and support. Without any further ado, I'd like to invite Her Excellency, Ms. Charlotte Pierre, the British High Commissioner, for her address. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Dr. the Honourable Mrs. Jyoti Jeetan, Minister of Financial Services and Economic Planning, Madam Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Financial Services and Economic Planning, Madam Deputy Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Financial Services and Economic Planning, Mr. Prakash Sibusunkar, who's Officer in Charge of the FSC, Mr. Tom Keating, Director of the Centre for Finance and Security from RUSI, his team, who are warmly welcome, officials from the public sector, my colleagues from the British High Commission, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's an honour to be here for the opening of this workshop on countering proliferation finance, funded by the UK government and delivered by our colleagues from RUSI. It was heartening to hear from the MC today about the UK and Mauritius relationship. It's important, and both of us stand rightly proud of being important financial centres. Our respective financial services sectors make significant contributions to our economies as sources of skills, employment, and of course, all-important tax revenue to fund critical public services. And here in Mauritius, I think you all know, but it's worth repeating, the financial services sector contributes approximately 13% to GDP. And therefore, you're also a critical financial hub to Africa, with 10% of all FDI flowing through here into that important continent. For both of us, this sort of openness speaks directly to our identities as outward-facing trading nations. However, when this openness is abused, it undermines our prosperity, our security, our stability, and also our respective publics' trust in their systems of government. The UK is therefore determined to play our part in ensuring the integrity of the financial systems, both domestically but also internationally. We're proud of the City of London. It's one of the largest financial centres in the world. But my Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, recently said, for too long, the doors of Britain have been left open for the corrupt. This has enabled kleptocrats to financially benefit at the expense of ordinary people. And that's why last year my Foreign Secretary launched his personal campaign to combat illicit finance and money laundering both at home and also overseas. His campaign will help drive global action to reduce the harms caused by illicit finance, particularly in developing countries, and prevent the abuse of the international financial system by those trying to exploit it. An important part of that campaign is working in partnership with our international partners, and particularly with financial centres like Mauritius. It's by working together that we can raise the standards that Tom was talking about. We can raise them everywhere and leave dirty money no place to hide. The FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, its standards are crucial to this, and Tom spoke about this in detail. The UK is committed to supporting Mauritius with its preparations for the next FATF review, currently scheduled in 2027, and this week's workshop shows that we're actually putting this partnership into practice. We're proud to do this with RUSI. RUSI is one of the world's oldest defence and security think tanks and a leader in its field in the UK. For over 190 years, RUSI has engaged communities and leaders the world over to help build a safer and stable world. Thank you to the RUSI team for coming to Mauritius, for making the long journey out here. Hopefully, Tom, you'll get out of your hotel room this time with the team and experience also some of this beautiful island. I'd like to end by thanking the Honourable Minister and her team for their focus quickly on this important topic, and also to Minister Jeetan for making the time to be with us today. Your leadership on this agenda is invaluable, and I look forward to further collaboration with you and the Ministry in the years to come. Thank you very much, and good luck with your discussions this week.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your thoughtful remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, we are truly honored to have today with us Dr. the Honorable Mrs. Jyoti Jeetan, Minister of Financial Services and Economic Planning. While she is at the dawn of a new era marking the history of financial services in Mauritius, we are confident that her unparalleled leadership, strong determination, and vision will be pivotal in addressing critical challenges such as proliferation financing. We are privileged to hear from her today. It is now my pleasure to invite the Honourable Minister to deliver her keynote address.
Good morning, everyone, and let me start by saying once again my apologies for running late. It's not in my habit, and it's true that I used to leave 2 minutes from my work. Now I leave 1 hour or an hour and a half, depending on how the traffic goes, coming from Grand Bay to Eben every day. So really sorry that you guys have to wait while I was in the traffic. And Tom, I really, you said about me coming from private sector. It's true I come from the private sector, but I come from the real estate. My last 10 years have been in real estate industry. And whilst it might look like real estate has nothing to do with financial services, actually in Mauritius, especially the job that I was doing up in the north, is very much linked to the real estate sector, because people from overseas are buying properties out here. So, they are most of the time have a management company, or they are, high net worth individuals, and sometimes, other individuals who can sneak their way through and buy real estate. And so, in a way, the last 10 years, but before that, I was in financial services for a very long time, especially in London. So I'm very pleased to be here today to deliver this speech to you all. Your Excellency, Mrs. Charlotte Pierre, British High Com, Tom Keating, Director, Centre for Finance and Security, Royal United Services Institute, my colleagues from the Ministry and from FSC, Madame Norbert, Madame Shiraz, Mr. Sivsanka, and the whole team who are here, the representatives from Royal United Services Institute, respected guests and participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and a warm welcome to you all. It is really my pleasure, sorry about that, it is really my pleasure and privilege to address you today in my capacity as new Minister of Financial Services and Economic Planning. And believe me, it's still quite new because I'm still finding my footing on the ground in this new life from corporate world to politics and government position. And as we embark on the commencement of this training program on assessing the risk of proliferation financing, which will run until 22nd of January. This 3-day event, organized by my ministry in collaboration with the British High Commission and the Financial Services Commission, and which is being facilitated by the esteemed Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, represent a significant milestone in our collective efforts to strengthen our anti-money laundering, countering the financing of terrorism, and countering and proliferation financing AML, CFT, CPF system. Mauritius has long enjoyed a close and fruitful partnership with the UK, and the support from the British High Com and the collaboration with RUSI on this event is just another testament to the enduring bond between our two nations. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the crucial role played by the UK as a strategic partner in facilitating various training sessions and enhancing the capacity of our AML CFT officers. In the past few years, the UK government has deployed significant expertise to support Mauritius in combating money laundering, terrorism financing, and proliferation financing, offering valuable training, knowledge, and peer learning. The UK has also been instrumental in providing technical assistance to Mauritius during the FATF grey listing period, as you mentioned earlier. As a member of the Technical Assistance Coordination Committee, which was set up to ensure effective coordination and delivery of training in Mauritius, the UK supported and guided our institution and the national experts on a range of issues, as well as contributing to various training programs organized by my ministry. This long-term collaboration with the UK aligns with our strategy to sustain our efforts to an effective implementation of the AML, CFT and CPF measures. Together, we are working to strengthen both regional and international financial systems, promoting mutual prosperity while firmly confronting the challenges of illicit finance, corruption, terrorism financing, and proliferation financing. I would really like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to the British High Commission and to RUSI for their invaluable support in organizing this workshop. In the margin of the ISAMLAG Task Force meeting held last year, Mauritius sought technical assistance from the UK, and this has materialized this year. The expertise and guidance provided will be crucial in ensuring that we stand ahead of the curve, as you so rightly said, Tom, when it comes to tackling complex and evolving risks in the financial system. I understand that the engagement with RUSI is not new to Mauritius. I understand that in 2020, RUSI also assisted Mauritius in developing the CPF guidelines on the implementation of targeted financial sanctions. Ladies and gentlemen, combating ML, TF and PF has always been a priority for Mauritius. Over the past few years, Mauritius has demonstrated a strong commitment to combating ML, TF and PF, positioning itself as a jurisdiction of substance with robust regulatory framework. On this note, I would like to share with you briefly some key ongoing initiatives at the level of my ministry. Firstly, Mauritius is currently finalizing its second National Risk Assessment exercise and the MLTF risk assessment of legal persons and legal arrangements. Secondly, a mid-term review is currently being undertaken to evaluate the technical compliance and effectiveness of Mauritius AML, CFT and CPF frameworks. And thirdly, we are in the process of conducting two reviews, namely the review of the terrorism financing risk assessment associated with non-profit organizations and the review of the MLTF risk assessment of virtual asset service providers. The proliferation of weapons of mass destruction poses a significant threat to international peace and security. In this respect, the FATF recommendation requires countries and the private sector to identify and assess the risk of potential breaches, non-implementation or evasion of targeted financial sanctions related to PF, and take appropriate mitigating measures commensurate with the level of risk identified. In this respect, I am pleased to announce that Mauritius will soon embark on the conduct of its first PF risk assessment. This process will ensure that the private sector and their supervisors understand the risk involved in their businesses and professions and do not unwittingly support or become part of PF networks or schemes in contravention of the relevant international obligations. For Mauritius, this workshop plays a pivotal role as we prepare for our forthcoming PF risk assessment. It will assist in enhancing participants' knowledge and understanding of how to effectively identify, assess, and mitigate risks associated with PF at both national and sectoral levels. As a nation committed to global peace and security, Mauritius is acutely aware of the risks posed by proliferation financing in an increasingly uncertain global environment. We understand that the threat of PF is not only a national issue, but one that transcends borders with the potential to undermine regional and international stability. In this regard, Mauritius remains resolute in its determination to strengthen our financial and regulatory frameworks, ensuring that we do our part in preventing the misuse of our systems for the funding of weapons of mass destruction. In addition to our domestic efforts to combat proliferation financing, our country is also internationally engaged in addressing the global challenge. One notable example is Mauritius' involvement in the FATF project on complex proliferation financing and sanction evasion schemes, which is aimed at updating FATF CPF guidance by providing a current view of the complex sanctions evasion schemes being used by proliferation financiers. I hope that all of you participating in this workshop will engage actively, share your insights, and learn from each other's experience and deepen your understanding of the methods and tools that can be used to assess and address TF risk. This is a collective responsibility, and each one of us has an important role to play. As we move forward, let us remember that the fight against PF is not just about compliance with international standards. And as Dom, I totally agree with you, it's not about ticking the box, but being really effective in what we are trying to achieve. It is about contributing to a safer, more secure world for all of us. And we need to work together across borders, governments, financial institutions, law enforcement agencies, and the private sector to develop a robust understanding of the risk of PF and ensure that we are prepared to mitigate them. This collaborative approach is essential in preventing the misuse of our financial systems for nefarious purposes. And I look forward to fruitful discussion and knowledge sharing that will take place over the next few days, and I'm confident that this program will make a meaningful contribution to our collective effort in safeguarding global peace and security. Before I conclude, I would like to leave you with a thought from Abraham Lincoln, and it goes on like this: the best way to predict the future is to create it. And I also hope that our friends from the Russie take the opportunity to experience the warmth and hospitality of Mauritius during their stay here. It's the complete or the extreme in terms of weather and heat. We can't bear it at the moment, it's so hot, but I'm sure you will enjoy the heat. I now declare the workshop open and wish you all fruitful deliberation. With these words, I thank you all for your attention.